All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Hello and welcome. It is time for round 6 of the Division 1 Championship here at ISRL Esports, and we are here under the lights in Singapore. It is time for the Singapore Grand Prix as we're just getting set to start off our short qualifying session. My name is ISRL Monkeys, Follow Monkeys, or Eric if you prefer. Joined in the booth, of course, by Jamie Morris. And Jamie, how you doing here this evening? Excited for the racing action we have in store here in Singapore.
We had a good one last week, which was the Canadian GP in North America, and now we're here in the Asian countries in Singapore, the Marina-based circuit, which has 23 turns of 5 kilometers along, and it also is the first race of the night race as well, back in 2008 where it was held, where Fernando Alonso took a victory, and when Nelson Piquet had that famous crash at the exit of turn number 17, and a year later it all kicked off when when somebody called Nelson Piquet decided to stitch on the team.
Yep, good old Crashgate way back in the day. I'm sure, or I hope that we don't have to run into something similar here today with the ISRL race. But it's always, crazy to look back on, so to see. But I mean, here in Singapore, the first race under the lights here, as far as I'm aware, starting I'll say a small Asian tour because next week we're going to be in Bahrain, so not like we're doing too long here in the here in the Asian area. We're kind of jumping back and forth, but honestly, I'm excited to see here what the drivers are going to have in store as they challenge this very difficult street circuit. Possibly, controversially, one of the harder circuits on the calendar. I know between this one, Monaco, Baku, like, a lot of the street circuits seem to be very difficult, but Singapore seems to have that, I feel, extra little flair to it. A bit of a longer lap, a couple more overtaking opportunities, but as you can see, the walls are as close as they can be here with the street circuit. Lots of tight corners, especially through sector 3. I'd say that we're seeing Calvin come through as he's getting ready for a lap. Now we still have a little bit to go, but Jamie, do you want to do the usual and take us through a lap here on board with Calvin as he's about to head around the final corner?
Yep, important to get these final 2 corners right to set yourself up on a really good lap. So there it is then, the 6th gear, DRS enabled for this first DRS, so now we're headed into turn number 1 then, braking about a 50 metre board, that black box, hitting turn 1, running out wide in turn 2, avoiding the curve in turn 3 because that does tend to ascend the rear, unless you've got a really good setup of course. Takes turn 4, now coming through turn 5, flick it in, hit that inside curve there, which it does do, run out wide, but don't hit the wall obviously, you can scrape it with your tyres. Now, coming through this flat out turn 6, no problem through here, we saw Kevin Magnussen get past Felipe Massa back in 2017, brake it at the 100 metre ball, hit the inside curve, run out wide on the exit. Now into the slow speed corners. We tend to see in the race a pretty good lockups and going out wide because it's such a difficult corner. And now coming through this left hand as well, bring out wide to get a really good angle. Hit that inside curve, but not too much though because you can see there a bit of correction on the steering as he exits the corner. Now coming to the old Singapore leg where people you tend to struggle. And now bring it into the right hand and we go, bounce over the curve, but you can see the rear just stepping out just a little bit there, had to back out of it a little bit. Under the Anderson Bridge we go, we saw Bruno Senna and Felipe Massa have a battle here back in 2012. Now the exit of turn number 13, coming into turn 14, braking at the 100 metre board here, hit that inside curve again in second gear, then short shifted to minimise the wheel spin. Now into the slow speed corners here, really crucial to get this ball right because it comes after another, and it's so tight as well, riding the inside curve through here, bring it out wide. Now we saw people hit the wall and crash here before in the old races. You can get it absolutely spot on. You can see the rear end just stepping out as he applied the throttle, way too much throttle. As you can see, there's loads of wheel spin, so that's going to hinder his lap time. He hits that inside curve and he spins and he hits the one. He's out. He is out from a slow speed crash. I think in real life he just lost his front wing, but as you can see there, the game it's all over the place really, and you can see that slow speed crash has cost him, and he's going to fall down into last place. So that is a massive shame for Calvin. Just a small mistake like that can cost crucially, and obviously around here it's so difficult to overtake, and I wonder, is Isak Kushten at 35.0 is the benchmark that everybody has to beat, and next across the line is the Aston Martin of QPR Campbell, which goes into P2 with a 35.3.
Yeah, lots, it looked to be a good lap from Calvin up until the end of Sector 3, just losing the back end a little bit, losing control of the car, and unfortunately here in this track, as I was mentioning, the walls are very close. You don't have much room as far as runoff is concerned here on this track, so you're really just hoping for the best if you do end up losing the car. Unfortunately for Calvin, was not the case, and he's going to have his work cut out for him starting all the way in the back of the grid once we jump into the race. But a 35 flat from Isaac Kush to kick off the session still is the best time on the board here as drivers getting their first laps in. I do want to think that we're going to go a little bit faster. I definitely think we're going to be seeing a sub 135 as Pease actually leapfrogs Isaac Kush by a couple hundredths of a second. 135.061 is the new time here to beat. But of course, it's the first lap. Drivers are just getting a feel of the setup, getting a feel of the car, figuring out getting a feel for the tires as well here. But I do think as session is going to play along, the track is going to get a bit more rubbered in. The drivers are going to get a little bit more comfortable. We're going to start seeing some times, I think, possibly in I would say maybe the mid 134s, if I do have to estimate, if not even faster, as we've seen in the past. Some of these drivers can just really pull a time out of nowhere here, but Wouter looked to have struggled a little bit through that corner, almost clipping the wall just before heading into the formerly Singapore sling. So I'm sure that'll affect his time, albeit it is still valid, but I'm not too sure if he's going to complete that lap once it's all said and done.
Might as well get a banker, see the feel of the track, because he did get a good toe down the straight with his teammates, so good teamwork for both McLarens, as Nola's on his out lap and Wouter is on his first flying lap. I believe Giroud Visser did invalidate his first lap, so he's headed back in the pit lane, because I don't think you want to do more than one lap on these set of tyres, because tyre wear is quite big around here, quite high around here, must be said. And also the one-stop strategy, I think, from soft to hard, I think we're going to see some early pit stop as well to do that undercut, because it can be quite powerful around here, given the circuit layout, 23 corners of course. And Wouter then makes his way towards the final two corners, and let's see what this lap time is. And it's going to be a 35.7 for his first banker then, so can he beat that? It's 4 thousandths away from Coxey. We're just waiting for more people to cross the line now, because we can see 6 people haven't set their lap times just yet due to validations and mistakes. But we've got Jamie one on our lap time so far. He did start the top 4 last week in Canada. Let's see where he is then in the Haas, and it's going to be a 35.3. So he started P4 back in America, and he's done it again, but obviously 10 minutes left to go. Anybody can improve. So good start there from Jamian, getting a good lap in and setting P4. I expect all these times to go quicker given the track evolution around here, and let's see then, can anybody improve? Nolan's on a lap, coming towards turn number 8 now. Gets a good exit there, a bit of wheel spin, but it won't affect him too much. Turn 9, let's see how he takes the exit. Very good in comparison to his teammate who did tap the wall, and his teammate did give him a solution street like he did to Wouter, so not getting the extra speed down that straight out. It's very easy to bounce over that curve and hit the wall. I've seen plenty of people do it before. This can be an overtaking opportunity. Depends if you ride the back, because if you're not, and he's going to give him a toe elsewhere, does Wouter. So he does get a toe in a different part of the track, and it's going to be a 3.0. It says purple, so if he keeps this up, he could be on call on par for a good lap time with P's with the 35.0. Can anybody get into 34s? I think they can with the track evolution. Bit of hesitation going into those slow speed corners there. Didn't really get the turn that he would have wanted, so might have lost a bit of time as he makes his way towards the slow speed corners now. Turn number 19 this is, now turn number 20, right in the curves. Be very patient with the throttle as well when you get on it. And we see Sebastian Vettel hit the wall in his qualifying days in Singapore in the Red Bull, and Nolan will cross the line then to go into P4 with a 35.3.
Yeah, bump it down, Jamie, but all in all, a very good lap from Nolan in that McLaren. I will say I do like the call from Wouter just to wait a little bit later on to give his teammate a little bit of a tow. Repay the favor, so to say, as Nolan did. Of course, the straightaway on the exit at turn 9 is a good spot, but I do think if I had to pick between the two, if the distance is there, I'll take the straight with DRS, and it looks like for Nolan it did definitely work out for him as he put himself into a top 4. and with a decent 35.3, looking to be right on pace with a lot of the drivers here and in prime spot there, assuming he doesn't improve as the session plays along. But I'm seeing a lot of 35.3s, 35.4s. Still, that 35.06 from Pease is the time to beat. But it looks like Isaac Kush is on a lap right now. But right as I say that, coming through near the bridge section here of the track, an invalidation from the Mercedes driver. So unfortunately, not going to be an improvement. I'm not too sure where he was sitting as far as Sector 1 was concerned, so might not have been too much of a worry, but still a little unfortunate for him. Jerome once again having an invalidation, and it appears if that was taking the final corner as he crossed the line and still has that invalidated lap. You can see that the red mini-map there on the right-hand side of your screen. So really unfortunate there for Jerome, as he's going to have to go around the track again, and there's a very good chance that he might need to take another pit stop, and that could be a possible waste of... well, I'll say waste of tires for him. Meanwhile, we've got Ben JS, who's running a lap, and I think it's his debut for Ben here in Division 1. I don't recall seeing his name before. He went purple in the second sector, though, but with no time on the board, very much could have been a personal best time. But I'm going to keep an eye out on the Alpine, as he's only got a couple corners to go. Approaching that final corner now, you can see fighting the car ever so slightly. Doesn't take as much curb on that final corner, though. And as he heads towards the line, it's a 10th fastest time, a 35.6 for Ben. But through all of that, a couple times hit the board. You've got Justice, who broke into the sub-35s, leading the way with a 134.5. QVR Campbell with a 34.776. And Dan not too far behind with a 34.793. So lots of quick times, and I'm seeing RELPs going about just under 3/10 faster in Sector 2. So if he can find a little bit more time here in this final sector, he might be able to join them here. But he's going to have to find a little bit more if he wants to retake that spot on the top of the leaderboards here.
Yeah, good times from Justice Campbell and Dan. I was on board with Campball, so a really good time as well. And Jeroen as well, he validated both runs. He validated on turn number 21. I'm about to see P's cross the line, go P2, so a 34.7, about over a 10 just to be far from Justice, but nevertheless is on the front row, so good performance there for P's. But yeah, Jeroen, I think he validated through turn number 20 or 21, and he went a bit wide in frustration to 22 and 23, so that cost him this and next invalidator. So on the back foot, along with Jeroen, along with rotation as well. Let's see what Walter's doing in that McLaren. He's out there somewhere on the track. He's invalidated again. Has Walter, so he's not having a good time around this demanding track. It's really, really difficult, this track. Who else is out there? Is that Dan on a lap? No, he's in the pit lane. So, yeah, majority of the pit lane, some invalidating. I've got Jamie going for another lap time if you want to go on board with him.
Yep, I've just jumped on board with Jamie as he's taking turn 2. We'll see if he can beat out that 35.3 that he's had previously. We'll get a bit of an idea as he's heading towards Sector 1 down I think it's Raffles Boulevard if my memory serves me right here. But yep, just a little bit faster there, just around a 10th of a second quicker this time around. So I mean, looking to be a good start, but he's gonna have to improve just a little bit more here, I think. Gonna have to find that time through the other two sectors. We'll see what the lap looks like as it plays out here, just going through that Singapore sling and approaching the bridge section here.
Yeah, not one of my favourite parts of the track. In fact, none of it's my favourite part of the track, because it's so difficult to drive around here. But Jamie then getting away around that corner, very nice doing no wheelspin there. DRS enabled for this third DRS zone. Now heading into turn number 40. Might see some overtakes, 3/10 up in that middle sector, so he's the one to keep out for. If he finds more time, could find himself above Isaac Kush if he keeps it nice and tidy now, heading to these slow speed corners here. Riding the curves, getting a really good exit out there. And let's see then, into this next corner we go. Left-hander, taking that curve on the entry. Be really, really patient with the throttle here. You don't want to get the throttle too early out. I saw with Calvin earlier on in this session there. And Jamie 1 slightly misses the apex to turn 20. Now coming through turn 21 he goes. Turn 22 into 6th gear. Oh, hesitation there there for Jamie. Oh, we spun! And it goes across the line in style, but obviously he's not going to improve, so that's a massive shame for Jamie in there. I think he got on the throttle way too early or got on the curb, and he's got 3 minutes and 25 seconds left to go in the session, so I'm not quite sure if he will get another lap on the board. I don't think he want to go on those tyres again because those tyres are cooked, but I can see a tyre on the track. I did see Killer Blue retire on the straight. It was the RP for sure, and Killer Blue is a P8 and he's out of the session, so it must have been him who's lost that wheel there.
Yeah, it must have been Killer Blue. I've been seeing Calvin's tire as well, just sitting right in front of that, right in front of the pit lane entry as well from his accident previously in the qualifying session. But I mean, of course, the team here, the Marshals, they do their best when it comes to picking up, but they always seem to forget at least that one stray tire that they just can never seem to find. But we seem to be able to spot without any issues. But I mean, we'll deal with it. I don't think it's affecting too much of any of the other drivers, other than just having a little bit of laugh, like we are here in the booth, I think. But oh my goodness! And right as I was watching that, Nolan trying a lap on the medium tires, but that was a big tank slapper, right on the exit. That I don't know the corner number, I'll be honest, but just leaving the bridge section there right before DRS. So unfortunately, not going to be an ideal lap from Nolan, but with 2 minutes left, if he put enough fuel in the car, he might just be able to go for another one. It is a bit of a beauty here with the medium tires that they'll last a little bit longer. You can afford taking that second lap as much as it's not ideal. Let's see what he decides to do, as he's going to take the final corner. And we'll see if he keeps DRS open, as it seems like he will. I think he's going to go for another one there, as that first lap was a little unfortunate for him. And I honestly thought that was going to be an invalidation there heading into turn 2, but found a way to get around it there, did Nolan.
Talk about invalidations. Isak Kush has just invalidated his lap, but I think he's got enough fuel in the tank to go for it. Our top 4 is on that out lap. So yeah, Nolan, he's a driver to talk about, because I've noticed this in previous qualifying sessions that he's one of the drivers who gets through the top 10 on a different tyre compound. He's done it again. He's in P6 at the moment. Obviously, his best time is still the soft compound tyres. So if he wants to improve, he'll start on the soft. If he doesn't improve, he'll start on the soft compound tyres. There's 1 minute left to go in this session, so potentially got one more lap to go for it if he just wants to do more laps on those medium compound tyres for sure. But it's really difficult to do one lap on those medium compound tyres, because they're not really a qualified tyre, just a race tyre. But we've got Gary across the line next. He pops himself just behind Nolan, and he goes into P7 in that Aston Martin. So I believe then the top runners on a lap. QVR Campbell now is on a lap. He's just improved 700ths in that first sector. So good start there for QVR Campbell, making his way through turn number 10. Slight lock up at entry, but not evident. Coming into turn 11 now. Rise the curve very nicely through there. Coming through the under Addison Bridge. Breaking down here into third gear we go. Rotates the car very nicely. Just slight hits to lock up, and it won't affect him too much, as it's very easy to lock up slightly. It won't affect you too much. Now in this middle sector, 2/10 up. This 2/10 could find himself on pole position. He needs to find a bit more time now in that last sector to try and get the absolute limit of that pole position. Now coming through turn number 17. Oh, I think he just scraped the wall there coming out of turn 17. Now through turn 18. Now turn 19. Be really, really patient with the start here. Qualifying has ended, so it's everybody's last chance now. Coming through turn 21. The back end just wanted to step out on him. Now turn 22. Nicely there. Turn 23. Is this going to be pole? And it's P2, so 34.6, and he's lost a bit of time in that middle sector, so that lost time could have found himself on pole position. We've got Justice and Pease who are improving on their lap time. So Justice then, he's making his way through turn 10, needs to keep it nice and clean then. So does Pease just behind. Pease improves slightly in that first sector, so he needs to find a bit more time if he wants to take that second place back or get on pole position. Justice rotating nicely out through turn number 13, now heading up towards turn 14. Let's see what his middle sector's like. Oh, it's 800 up, so this is good lap time. Good lap time then for Justice. That keeps it nice and tidy. Just a little bit wheel spin there as he applies the throttle coming to these slow speed corners. Let's see how the tyres take it, because these tyres will get hot in this final sector, which can be very difficult, especially during the race as well when you're behind somebody. And now let's see how he takes these slow corners then. Be really patient with the throttle. It's very easy to lose the rear end. Turn 20. Turn 21, attacks them nicely. You got a curb, can unsettle the car sometimes. Now coming through turn 22 and turn 23. Is this going to be better than his previous? Yes, it is. It's a 34.4. And now we've got Pease left. As Pease has crossed the line to go quickest, Was that the validation? It said
Yes, it was
34.4.
an invalidation. I switched over to him right as right before he crossed the line, and I did see that red track map. So unfortunately for Pease, I don't know where the invalidation was, but it was an invalidation nonetheless. So missing out on a crucial pole position. But for Justice, what a lap that he was able to pull up. I mean, had that pole position essentially secured for the most part, but adding that extra little cushion, and just come to realize it worked out really well for him as Jerome finally put a lap together when he needed it the most, and he jumped all the way up to P2 and puts that Red Bull on the front of the grid only about a tenth of a second slower than that time set by Justice, with QVR Campbell continuing his strong showing here after a great race in Canada, puts himself in the top 3 in qualifying, and we'll see if he can make that work for him for another strong finish here in the race. Isaac Kush and Pease round out the top 5. So it was a great qualifying there, but Justice, he's got that pole position, found the lap together. He's looking to be on the pace, and he's going to have that clean air to start as they head into turn 1. But we'll see how he gets the launch, how he handles that for those first few corners, or if anybody's going to be able to attack. And oh my goodness, look at this. Are you seeing what I'm seeing, Jamie?
Wonder why I only went to the mediums then, because you want to start the soft compound, you want to qualify the soft compound tyres. But yeah, it's like 2017. And guess what? It's a Ferrari and the Red Bull on the front wheel. Can we see a repeat of history here?
Yep, there is a possibility that we'll see that. I do know, Division 2 did see a little bit of rain as well, and I know the rain, the lack of DRS wasn't quite ideal as far as the overtaking was concerned, but we'll see how that affects. I mean, it doesn't look like it's falling all that hard, so we'll get an idea in a few moments. And it is intermediate tire conditions, so that's going to make things very interesting. And maybe putting a little bit of a dent in that strategy to qualify on the medium tires, as at the end of the day, starting on inters, you might as well just take the pace in qualifying with the softs. But I do know the weather report is never truly accurate here, so quite possibly could have had a little bit of different info indicating that it was going to be a dry tire start, but not the case here, it seems. Intermediate tires is the way to go, and looking at the track, I don't blame the drivers for going for that at all. Looking to be a decent amount of spray coming off of those cars, and we'll see if it gets better. Fingers crossed, but there is a chance this weather could get worse, and we might see a couple different tire compounds being used here.
Shout out to Giroud who are qualified, because he had a few invalidations, and that can really hinder your confidence and mentality, especially around this track as well, because it's so difficult to hook up. And he's got himself a P2, so he's done a fantastic job to recover and put that Red Bull on the front row along with Justice then. But also on the intermediate tyres, if it does dry up towards the middle or the end or early, that rule of using more than one tyre compound on the dries will be excluded, obviously, because it's inter and it's wet conditions. Also, I've noticed a few drivers under fuel in the car. You can see on the red light, or yellow light I must say, from Giroud and a few more drivers as well have got the yellow light. So they've gone to reduce the excess fuel that you carry towards the end of the race, just in case you start running out of fuel, because obviously it's standard, you can't go to rich or lead, so you can't really save fuel unless you're behind the safety car, of course. But in the wet conditions, it's very easy to save fuel, and ERS as well, so I don't expect anybody to be low on ERS.
Oh no, and of course, I don't blame the drivers for underfueling the car. It is Singapore after all, and if there is one thing that's all but a given here, is that we might see, or there's a very good chance that we'll see at least one safety car here on this race. I know statistically, I think this is the track we end up seeing safety cars the most often. We'll see how the Division 1 drivers are going to handle that, but of course, with these intermediate tire conditions adding to that layer of difficulty here, on this already difficult track, it's really going to be interesting to see how that's all playing out, as The drivers are taking their grid spots here. We're just about set for the 5 red lights. Ferrari on pole, Red Bull staring down on the inside line of turn 1 on the front row. Who's going to take the lead as we're up to 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 red lights? And the lights are off, and we are racing here in Singapore, as it looks to be a bit of a cautious start from a lot of the drivers. You can see Jerome's car kicking towards that outside line, trying to get a decent exit into turn 1. Looking like everybody's making it through cleanly. A little bit of battles here between Wouter and Isaac Kush, and Isaac having a terrible start here, falling down to 6th place. Pease and QVR Campbell side by side as they head towards turn 4, I believe, or turn 3. It looks like Pease just getting ahead, but Justice got the start he needed. We've got a yellow flag here, and oh no, that's Jamie 1 who's fallen down the orders. He went for a little bit of a spin, I think, but Pease and QVR Campbell still side by side. Here comes Wouter, who wants to get involved. They're going to go 3 wide almost into this next corner section. It gets sorted out, nearly into the wall goes Pease, but finally that gets that little tussle gets sorted. It's Pease ahead of Campbell, ahead of Wouter, but wow, what a start that was there in the first few corners. Nearly 3 wide in a corner that honestly is hard enough to take 2 wide there.
Yeah, Pease had a really good start, had a good initial phase. He got past Isa Kush, and Isa Kush then got compromised into turn 1 because they were almost 3 wide, and Isa Kush had to back out of it, got himself on the curb, so he couldn't really pick up the throttle as he early wanted to. He's fallen behind Wouter, but Wouter being very smart about it, not going 3 wide because 1, it's wet and it's the first lap. But yeah, you don't want to go 3 wide in a tight corner like that because it ended chaos. So respect for Wouter to back it out and let Pease and Campbell sort it out. But what a start there from Total Pease. And also in the wet conditions as well, you can see Dan and Killer Blue exchange positions. Dan going a little bit deep into that corner, but he has the next corner left-hander, should stay in 8th place. But yeah, with Pease and Campbell's battle, that's fantastic because it was wet as well, heavy fuel, and you don't know what the conditions feel like.
And Dan, as you were mentioning that, Dan, I think taking a lot of wing damage, although it's not visible on that Ferrari. He hit the wall very hard into that left-hander, not getting the car slowed down in time, and you can see very quickly, very wisely heading into the pit lane. It's going to be a recovery drive for him there, but a bit of a costly mistake for him. But better to get that out of the way early. You've got all the time available to you to try to catch back up. It's just going to be a little bit difficult. Same for Jamie, who you can see, I think, has some damage himself on that Haas car, as he's going to have to take a pit stop as well and get that fixed. But for now, you're still seeing Justice leading the way. Jerome in second, keeping him aware, half a second behind. But it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get the overtakes done without any DRS active at this point. You're really going to have to rely on the exits here of the corners and just hope for a little bit of slipstream. Use your ERS wisely here. But I mean, as far as control's concerned, it's in Justice's hands. If he's just gonna keep it clean, like we've seen him do in as far as qualifying and so far here in these early stages, he's looking to be in a pretty good control of this race here in these opening stages.
Looking for a redemption drive is Jeruvas after he made contact with the safety car. In fact, it wasn't him, it was his AI that went into contact with the safety car. But yeah, looking for that redemption drive in second place behind Justice. Well, nice to see Justice back after he took a few races absent, but he's currently leading the way ahead of Total Pease, who didn't have the best race himself in Canada after making a mistake at turn number 4, losing traction to hit the wall. Last week's race with a QVR Campbell is in P4, and obviously podium sitter Dan is down in P15 from last week, and Killer Blue in P8, but it's a much more difficult track as well. Also for Wild, he didn't have the best of races last week either, and now he's in P5. A lot different track is kind towards Singapore, so they might favour some more drivers here in Singapore. And Justice then sets the fastest lap on lap 3. QVR Campbell just falling away from the 1 second from P. Obviously DRS is not enabled. It can be in a few races we saw in Turkey last year as well. QVR Campbell goes a bit deep, he hit that inside curve in turn 1 and thrown him off into turn 2, and so he might have exceeded track limits there, so you can be careful not to do that more than twice. And he had loads of wheels coming out of turn 4 as well, so not really confident going through those low speed corners. But yeah, early doors in this race, anything could happen. You can see the gap starts to develop now because obviously the wet conditions much different to the dry. People have different driving styles in the wet, and it tends to get more separated in the wet than it does the dry. There's no DRS to hold anybody in contention, so it's just all about driver skill in these wet conditions.
Yep, and with these wet conditions, it's really going to take a lot of skill just to get around this track 31 times here. I mean, it goes to show the difficulty of Singapore, as we've already seen, and as we're going to continue to see here. But I mean, the drivers are handling it here with the conditions, with the difficulty of the track. But like you said, we're going to start seeing a couple gaps, maybe not much in terms of overtaking opportunities here, with the lack of DRS, not staying within that slipstream. But of course, we're talking about I mean, forced and unforced errors. We're talking about pit stop strategy here, and I think we're going to start seeing that play out as this race plays along. Maybe I mean, maybe a driver the likes of Jerome or Pease trying an undercut here, or depending on what the weather report's saying, just try an early pit stop here, an early gamble, try to time that ideal tire to get on, and just force the hand of other drivers. But we'll have to see how that's all going to play out. We don't have much in terms of weather reports here in the commentators' booth, unfortunately, so I'm not too sure how that's all going to play out. But all the while, Justice setting another fastest lap here of the Grand Prix. He's 1.2 seconds ahead of Jerome here on lap 4, just as we're starting lap 4. So Justice having a solid race here. Jerome, he was half a second back. He's starting to fall back just a little bit, but of course might be settling into that strategy a little bit, trying to figure out how he wants to play this, how he wants to go about it, to try to maybe rely on a quicker pit stop, rely on a different pit stop time. We'll see how that all plays out though for him, as of course top 3 all kind of separated by about a second. Top 4 as well. It is getting a little bit closer with Wouter and Isaac Kush putting a little bit of pressure. I'm sure Wouter sitting in 5th place though. He might be feeling a little bit of pressure here, sitting in 2nd in the Drivers' Championship right now. But of course, his main competitor and the championship leader, Ariel Nathan, nowhere to be found here this week, as he's not racing. So lots of points on the board to try to catch up to the championship leader. But of course, a 5th place for Wouter might not necessarily do that. Of course, with Campbell sitting in 3rd in the championship and 4th, a little bit better. But I think these two drivers are going to want to maybe try to gain a couple more positions somewhere along the way as this race continues onwards.
Hello, Dan. Nice to see you in the play here. Have you got any weather information for us, mate? Oh, he's not speaking. But yeah, he's left the session now. I thought he came here to speak to us because he's down in 60th place. I thought he might want to make a company. But yeah, I've experienced where Calvin has overtaken rotation. Let's see whether that is there. The slow speed corner, so I think rotation must have made a mistake somewhere out of those corners, and he's under pressure from Ben JS right behind too. Yeah, but he's going slow. I think he must have taken some damage, and yes, he has. So it's the pit lane he goes then to replace that broken front wing. But I've experienced a wet race myself around here, and it's not nice whatsoever. It's so hard to overtake. Even if you're the quicker guy behind, you just can't overtake around here due to the dirty air. And you try and get on the throttle as early as you can, but you just wheel spinners, so you've got to be really careful about that as well. So that's why you see these gaps starting to develop, because it's just so difficult to stay in that dirty air and follow. Unlike in the actual dry race where you can stay with the DRS range, use the overtake, and not much difficult to get back in the power as it is in the wet. So especially a track like Singapore, where it's difficult enough to overtake, and in the wet it's 10 times worse. But looks like QBR Campbell has actually dropped back. He's 2 seconds behind P, so I dare say something must have happened then towards him, because he's Wouters and Issa Kushten is breathing down his neck. So I might see a battle start to develop between those 3 soon. So it'll be really interesting, because I believe those top 3 are 2nd, 3rd and 4th in the championship, but Wouter leading all 3 of them.
Yeah, so I mean, I do have to agree. I think something happened to Campbell there. Maybe a tank slapper, just a little extra lift to keep the car under control. But that did allow both Wouter and Isaac Kush to close right up on that gap, only about a half second behind. But of course, as you can see, and as it seemed to have been the case here so far for the entirety of this race, drivers are just stuck behind, following one another, but just can't quite seem to get the overtakes done. Really, I'm sure they're really missing that DRS here in these intermediate tire, in these wet weather conditions, having to really rely on the drivers ahead making a mistake. But I mean, with that slight mistake, I would think, from QVR Campbell, it does allow the top three to have a little bit more of a cushion here. Meanwhile, I am noticing Jerome in the Red Bull slowly starting to close up, brought that gap just to around 1 second flat, hovering around that 1 full second, 9/10 of a second. So Jerome, he's starting to maybe push a little bit. You can see fuel is still a bit of an issue here in these early stages, but I mean, he's got time to sort that out. Justice, meanwhile, not having that same fuel issue, still running a good race here. Doesn't seem like he's made any massive mistakes here, and still seems to be in the driver's seat. Meanwhile, Pease might be falling back a little bit, but just not as much as QVR Campbell. That gap now 2.5 seconds. So I'm not too sure if it was a mistake or more just maybe QVR Campbell not as comfortable here in these damp track conditions compared to what we've seen in the past. From last week in Canada, or maybe just even in the generally in the dry conditions here around Singapore.
Got some weather update for you. It is raining throughout the whole race, according to Dan, the man who's just joined right now. So hopefully he can get back in his car. I hope those three rotation, Jamie and Dan, will be hoping for a safety car because they're way out of contention. So they can bring it back into the race, a safety car. But yeah, the way to save fuel in any sort of race, it'll make you much slower. So unless you have a safety car, you don't want to be running fuel saving because you have to lift and coast. And what that means is lifting off the throttle early in the braking zones and let the brakes and aerodynamics slow you down and getting the power later as well. So that's how you lift and coast around here or any track. So yeah, unless the safety car is out, lift and coast, it could be an issue, but obviously the wet conditions you can lift and coast because it's so easy to keep the guy behind you. But making a mistake around here as well is costly because if you go out wide just a little bit, you'll have loads of cars bearing down of you, and obviously it's a wet race and the gaps are separated. So yeah, one mistake can put you down the field. But talking about mistakes, we got a mistake from Dan. He's just joined and went for a spin in that Ferrari, so came back in the slow speed corners where he didn't want to be.
Yeah, not ideal for Dan, as that's not going to help him in terms of trying to catch up to the field. You can see his teammate is slowly starting to close up on him a little bit there, from what I can see on the minimap. Not an imminent concern, but I mean, of course, with possibly some more damage, not necessarily visible on Dan's car. Just really not ideal for him. Of course, just getting back into the lobby after those connection issues and going for that spin. Not a way you wanna start on that rejoin, but we'll see how we can play that out. Maybe hoping for that safety car that we might see here on this track, but it looks like a lot of the drivers may be playing a little bit cautious here, taking what they have and just really hoping for a mistake from another driver somewhere along the way. But of course, that's a tall order to ask here for the Division 1 drivers who, put in a lot of reps here. They put that practice in on the drives. I'm sure a lot of them put that practice on these wet weather conditions as well. So they're just about ready to go with whatever the game decides to throw at them here. But we'll see. I guess we'll see how it all plays out here. It is still early stages. Only lap 7, about to start lap 8 here. Finally getting my gaps back between for the top 3, and Justice, he's been extending that lead, and you saw that yellow track map. That's another fastest lap for Justice, who just seems to be going faster and faster as this race continues on. He's really feeling the groove here around Singapore, it seems.
Yeah, dialing into the wet conditions is Justice. He's in first place, so he's not under much pressure because it's so easy to keep the guys behind you. But I think it's going to be a non-stop strategy because I believe the Inters are really good long tyres. So I think a non-stop will be the way to go. I don't think the one-stop will be quicker. So yeah, I don't think anyone will be doing a one-stop because they don't want to lose that crucial track position. It's just so difficult to overtake around here. But yeah, we're in the 1 minute 52s, and that is a very long way around this track in the wet conditions. So yeah, only on lap 8 out of 31. Anything can happen with the safety cars, but from now here on in, it's going to be a race like this, sadly for us. But that's the Singapore Grand Prix, and that's the way the season goes. You can have really good races and really uninteresting races, it must be said.
Yep, it is. I mean, There's a saying that goes around. That's racing, I guess. You get those crazy races. Sometimes you'll get races kind of like what we're seeing now, which is just to be drivers following drivers, just sticking with the track position. Not, I mean, maybe I'll say driving very conservatively, not to force themselves into a mistake, but. We'll see how that all plays out. Maybe as the laps continue onwards, we might start seeing a little bit more desperation from some drivers who, I don't know, maybe are just getting tired of seeing that same rear diffuser that they've seen for the last, 20-something laps to try to go for something, make something happen. But we'll see how that plays out. A 52.7 for Justice. Once again, another fastest lap as he's continuing his run here around Singapore. Still 1.3 second gap, 1.4 now between himself and Jerome. Meanwhile, QVR Campbell, he's done a great job of keeping Wouter and Isaac Kush behind, but 3.1 seconds now is the gap between himself and Pease. So for QVR Campbell, unfortunately, he's finding himself outside of that, I'll say that sweet penalty jump zone, assuming the likes of, let's say, Pease, I'd say less Jerome, but assuming one of them do get a penalty. But I mean, so far here on lap 9, it's looking to be a pretty clean race for the most part. Other than Nolan and Dan, the only two drivers who are currently sitting with penalties next to their name here so far.
Yeah, I was just about to mention penalties. You took it right out of my mouth there, but yeah, like people like Giroud, Pease, the only way they can move for positions. Pease is almost out that 3 second range as well behind the Giroud Visitor 2.6. You can watch out for that. But yeah, if penalties start kicking in, they can find yourself up the order advantage from there. But the main story of this race, or this evening, this weekend, is qualifying. Really, qualifying determined where people started, and it proved to be like whoever's in first in the first corner just proves to be the case so far, doesn't it?
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, this story here, like you said, definitely qualifying, because as far as the, if I take a look at the grid order here, as far as the switching's concerned, I mean, a lot of jump 2, down 1, jump 2, down 2. I mean, I'm seeing Killer Blue and Calvin up 4 positions, but I'm sure rotation, Jamie and Dan having to take those forced pit stops there did help out their jump. But for the most part, drivers kind of sitting relatively where they started here for the most part. So qualifying was really important, and if not qualifying, I have to say maybe those first few corners right off the line. I'm thinking back to that 2x2 battle between, I think it was Pease and Campbell, Wouter getting involved on lap 1 there. That seemed to make the story, just jostling for positions. And I think drivers may be knowing that that's the time to be aggressive, because wherever you end up might just be where this race is going to be for you, with how challenging it is to overtake around this circuit without the extra help of DRS. That rear wing flap opening, just giving you that extra pace down the straightaways. And I mean, so far it seems to be the case here. Drivers just sitting comfortably there.
Yeah, people, I think in this approach, the first lap, treat it as is the last lap, because that's literally the way he's going into.
Yeah, no kidding. That's, pretty much the case there. I mean, it was I have to treat it like a last lap in a race like this. It's your best opportunity to jump a few positions. I mean, for Pease, it worked out for him. Went from 5th up to 3rd. Wouter went up 2. Isaac Kush, I mean, like I was saying, didn't work out too well for him as he fell down 2 positions, and ever since he's just been stuck in 6th in a position the defending champion's kind of been stuck in quite some time here, just stuck in a train and can't really seem to go anywhere once he's stuck in that train. Albeit today it's a little bit less of a train and more just a little bit of pace, and I know for it being his home track, Isaac Kush not the best as far as Singapore is concerned. I do think him racing on a pad doesn't help his case too much. I do think Singapore is a little bit more of a wheel favorite track. But I mean, still hanging well. I was seeing Jerome setting some purple sectors there, so he's looking to find a little bit more pace. That gap has been closed up to 1.1 seconds now. So you can see Jerome, he's pushing a lot. Doesn't have much ERS in the tank, though, only sitting on 13%. Meanwhile, Justice, sitting in the lead of the race, he's got a whopping 63%. So he's managed that battery a lot better than Jerome has. But I do think Jerome's been using quite a bit just to try to close that gap and keep pressure on Justice. And also create some separation between himself and Peas, who, to be fair, finds himself now 4 seconds behind Jerome, sitting still comfortably in P3, about 4 seconds ahead of Campbell, who's being followed very close behind by Wouter in 5th.
Yeah, HP is just running his own race, same with Nolan as well, and Killer Blue. Shout out to XL Gary, because he's had 3 cars bearing down on him for the whole 11 laps. He's not made one mistake as Gary, so he's a car mentalist, Coxie and Calvin, all 3 relentless drivers right behind him, and he's currently in P9, not put a foot wrong. So yeah, good job there from XL Gary. Just needs to keep this up, make no mistakes. Obviously locked up there, but with no ABS, you can go super late on the brakes in the wet conditions and slow the car down. But yeah, he's done a fantastic job down in P9, holding off those 3 guys, Car Mentalist, Coxie, and Calvin, all begin with C as well.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. I mean, funny the way that worked out there. All the C drivers, Car Mentalist, Coxie, and Calvin, all stuck behind XL Gary, as you mentioned. A little 4-car train. I mean, Gary, I think, looking at the gap, I think he's aware of that as well, that it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to try to catch up to Killer Blue, who's sitting in 8th. So, I mean, best he can do, try to keep everybody else behind. You can see him, I noticed Calvin, he's jumping into the pits lane. He's jumped into the pit lane here. He's going to go for a different set of tires. Let's see what he's going to go for. He's putting on another set of intermediates. So interesting here from Calvin, as he's going to be taking that pit stop. Should be able to go to the end of the race now for sure on those fresh set of intermediate tires. But the question is are they going to have the pace to try to close that gap just a little bit, as he's going to come out just behind Ben out in P13, so that might not help his case too much in that Williams. He's going to have to try to find a way to get around Ben as quick as possible, and then use that clean air possibly to his advantage, maybe to close right back up to that train of cars that is still being headed by XL Gary here on lap 12.
I think Ben and Calvin had enough of being in that train, because Ben also pitted for a brand new set of intermediates, so Calvin just responded to him and obviously ended up behind him because Calvin was stuck in that train for extra longer, so he's lost a lot of time, and Ben was able to capitalise on those intermediates for 1 lap extra and get ahead of Calvin then. So it's worked for Ben JS. Now he needs to keep Calvin behind. Let's see if anybody else wants to respond. Will we see Gary, Comments, or Coxie make their way into the pit lane there? Will they respond? I'm not quite sure. If they're going to respond, do it this lap, because if they don't do it the next few laps, then obviously Ben JS and Calvin will get ahead, and they already know from experience right now that it's hard to overtake. So yeah, it's this lap that will determine it. If not, then they won't pit.
Yep, we'll keep an eye out on that. Meanwhile, it looks like, I thought we were having an overtake on track, but no, that's just Nolan who's taking his pit stop here, as he's going to put on a fresh set of intermediates. XL Gary staying out. Looks like Coxie's staying out, but Carmentalist, meanwhile, he's going to react to the likes of Calvin, take that pit stop here, as he's going to put on a fresh set. Looks like the 2 Williams drivers, they're opting to go for that 1 stop there, trying something a little bit different. We'll have to see where Carmentalist is going to end up compared to the likes of Ben and Calvin, as they're both coming around the final corner now. I'll keep an eye out on the mini-map. Where is Carmentalist going to end up? It looks like Carmentalist should be getting out just ahead of the both of them. Meanwhile, rotation, I think he said enough is enough, as he retires in the pit lane, as he is our first DNF of the session, not having an ideal race for him in that Alfa Romeo. So that's going to be the end of his evening here in Singapore.
a lot of concentration required around the streets of Singapore, not only in the dry but in the wet as well. And doing in the wet conditions takes even longer. 1 minute 52s they're doing around here, so they're going to be tired towards the end of this race. I know I would be around the streets of Singapore. Even in the dry, I'd be tired around here. So much concentration has to be put into this race.
Oh, definitely, and it's one of those tracks that you can't really lose your concentration. I mean, even for just a moment, because that's really all it takes here. With how close the walls are, with I mean, just the sheer amount of corners, like you'll lose your lapse of concentration for just half a second, heading down a straightaway, thinking you got time, and then before you know it, boom, the next corner shows up, and if you're not ready for it, well, you're going to have a bad time. I mean, best case scenario, you end up going wide. Worst case scenario, well, you hit the wall, and that's the end of your race right there, and really not what drivers want. Meanwhile, Isaac Kush taking a pit stop here in that Mercedes. He's going to go for a fresh set of intermediate tires. XL Gary also taking a pit stop here, so he's, I think, finding himself needing to react to the, I'll say the Sea Brigade, who all took their pit stops already. Now involved in a train with Ben as well, who is trying to close up the commental list. But let's take a look. Has XL Gary made that strategy work? It's gonna be close, as here comes Carmentalist through turn one, and it looks like he just gets ahead of Gary. Gary, meanwhile, slotting himself a little bit alongside Ben. Is Ben going to have the traction? No, not quite. As, I mean, Carmentalist, he's been set free, but meanwhile, Ben and Calvin, well, unfortunately for them, they, a big tank slapper from Calvin, right as I say that. He does clip the wall a little bit. I'm not seeing any visible damage on that Williams, but you can see a bit of a gap is formed. He's going to have a long way around the track, but that might just be another pit stop for the Williams driver, and that is the last thing Calvin wanted here on this race.
I was aboard with BenJS coming into turn number 5, I believe it was, and I believe Calvin did hit the back of BenJS, so compromised his exit dramatically, and obviously you saw he just hit the wall, so that's a shame for Calvin. Optimistic because they were all bunched up together, and obviously Gary coming out the pit lane has to warm up his intermediates before he can fully set off and pull away from BenJS, but his words out for Carmentalist. He's finally got past Gary after spending 11 laps behind him, and now let's see, can he set off and get close towards just Nolan, sorry, in P9. But I wonder, is any of the top guys going to respond? Do they have to respond? Are they going to risk it as well? Because I know these inters can go towards the end, and obviously people want to be in a fresher set of inters ready for the end as well. But yeah, is any of these big guys going to risk it? I wonder.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think as far as the front runners are concerned, they might be looking at Isaac Kush just to see what he can do on that fresh set. I mean, because with Isaac, with his pit stop, he was sitting behind Wouter. Now coming out of the pits, he's finding himself just 2 spots behind, down in 8th, closing up to Coxey, as we saw there. As Calvin, he says enough is enough after that mistake. He's had enough of Singapore, and he's going to take an early retirement here, following the footsteps of rotation a little bit on lap 15. But you can see, back to what I was mentioning, Isaac Kush closing up to Coxey. 1.3, 1.2 seconds is the gap. But of course, the key here is on that fresh set of intermediates, can Isaac Kush get ahead of Coxey in a timely manner, and of course catch back up to Killer Blue? Because if that's the case, then that could be a decision maker for some of the drivers ahead, thinking, hey, hang on, this one stop might actually be viable just with the extra pace. And I think that's when we're gonna see the dominoes start to fall. I mean, Isac's got a purple sector too, but he's now stuck in the spray of Coxey in that AlphaTauri. So the question is, can he get ahead? Wouter, meanwhile, well, he's gonna jump the gun here. He's gonna take a pit stop for the McLaren team. We'll see what he can do, and we'll keep an eye out on this here. Killer Blue coming around the final corner. He's gonna get ahead, but I think the bigger question is, where's Coxey and Isaac Kush gonna end up? You can see Coxey, I think, struggling just a little bit, and takes a 3-second time penalty for good measure. But as you can see, there is that McLaren. Is it going to be enough? It's close. Oh, and Isaac Kush went for a move, and they clip. Oh no!
Oh wow, Issa Kush, I don't blame him. He was desperately trying to go down the inside of Coxie. Coxie would not back out, and sadly they met on one piece of track on the same track. So yeah, Issa Kush took a lot of pain, and sadly he's rejoined down in P9. Not good for our championship contender there. Walter just got ahead. I dare say Issa Kush would definitely get ahead of Walter if it wasn't for Coxie, because he was being held up massively in that final set in those lead speed corners where Coxie was struggling. So sadly for Issa Kush, it hasn't worked out for him. And Walter, let's see what pace he's got on these brand new set events. It's ready for the end.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out well for Wouter. You got to think that maybe that, I'll say that the collision between Izat and Coxie might have helped Wouter just a little bit in being able to get ahead. I mean, I was on board with Coxie, thinking that, Coxie had the position there. Then, of course, I just see at the last second, just that front wing of Izat Kush trying to sneak in on the inside. Unfortunately, it was I don't know where Izat Kush was. I'll say that much, so I can't speak much on the move itself. But unfortunately, the contact looked to be a lot of just the I'll say the Cody's contact model that we all just know and love here in this game. With the tires and side pods, when they come together here in this game, I don't know what it is. You're kind of just flipping a coin. Are you going to end up okay, or are you going to end up going for a spin? Unfortunately for Izat, he landed on tails, didn't get the outcome he wanted, went for that spin, and now still finds himself behind a McLaren, just maybe not the one he was hoping to be behind once it was all said and done.
Walter has came out the pit lane ahead of QVR Campbell, so he's got the undercut on Campbell. He decided to stay at one lap longer, and it's worked beautifully for Walter to get ahead of QVR Campbell.
Yeah, that worked great for Wouter as he's finding himself up into fourth position now. He's going to have about a 30-second gap to try to close up, or a little bit under, 28 seconds, 29 seconds to close up to Pease. But he's got a lot of clean air, not stuck behind the Aston Martin of QVR Campbell anymore. So he's been released. He's got a purple Sector 1 for his troubles as well. So let's see, can Wouter turn on the jets in that McLaren and close that gap up? Maybe put a little bit of pressure on these on the top three drivers who are kind of sitting in a race of their own here, with Justice still leading the way, 2.5 seconds ahead of Girona now in this stage of the race. Meanwhile, you can see Killer Blue with his pit stop. He's finding himself behind Izat Kush, but ahead of Carmentalus, sitting in a little bit of open air as well. Izat Kush, though, meanwhile, still trying to find a way around that McLaren, and I think there might be you might just be able to feel the frustration a little bit in that Mercedes cockpit. Just trying to make something work, but just not working out for him. But Pease is going to be taking a pit stop here, so he's going to be following suit from the other group of drivers that we've seen. I think he should still be comfortably back out of the pit lane in third, unless of a crazy pit maneuver mishap. Doesn't seem to be the case, as yes, he is going to be comfortably in P3. But of course, Wouter coming around the final corner sets the fastest lap with a 151.6. That gap has been closed right back up here, and there you go. You can see right up on the back of Pease is Wouter. Can the McLaren driver maybe take advantage of the slightly colder tires from Pease to maybe get an overtake done before Pease finds the temperature and finds that extra pace with those slightly fresher tires?
Yeah, they're all going one by one, just looking at each other and responding to each other as well. Pease that if he stayed at one more lap, Walter would dare say definitely get past him. But yeah, you can see Izat Kush then all over the back of that McLaren, trying to find different angles, try and find a way past just Oda there. Has he got the straight line speed in that Mercedes to get past the McLaren Mercedes then? As we make our way down into turn number 7. I don't think he'll launch it from there. He's too wise not to do that, so he stays behind for the time being. But sadly for him, he finds himself being behind the wrong McLaren.
Yeah, really unfortunate. Just can't quite seem to get behind. I'm sure he's really wishing he could have DRS here. Even for just one straight. Wishing for that fan vote extra little boost like we've seen in, I think it was Formula E that had that one year. The little extra fan boost button, depending on the fan awarded. We got a yellow flag though. As what's that for? I'm not sure.
Dan retired the pits.
Oh, okay, that's Dan retiring in the pits. Okay, I did see a Ferrari, but I got a little confused there. Didn't notice. But Jerome, he's also taken his pit stop as well, as he's coming back on track, still comfortably in second. Justice though, he's got that comfortable pace now in, or he's got that comfortable gap now in P1. But is he going to respond to the pit stops that we've seen from the rest of the field? I did see him using a little bit of VRS, a little bit of battery there, maybe pushing a little bit, setting himself up for a decent in-lap. But, I mean, of course, Justice in that Ferrari, he's been in control for the entirety of this race. Now, if you're Justice, knowing that everybody's pit, you've got about, 12 laps to go. If you're in that Ferrari, would you take the pit stop, or would you just stay out and hope that the tires will last to the end?
I don't know, actually. I think I just go to pit lane just to be safe, because he's got the gap, he's got the buffer, and JB1 has hit the wall coming out of turn 18, so I think he might have cost himself a little bit for wind damage, or he might have gone deep, I'm not quite sure, but let's see that as he approaches the final few corners, and I think he might just escape. Might got a light green for wind damage, but nevertheless his front wing is intact, and let's see then, no, he continues way around, so I think he might have outbraked himself, but Justice said is headed around the third sector. This will determine whether he'll come in the pit lane, because he can't afford, if he's going to pit, he can't afford to do more than a few laps, otherwise Drew will get the jump of him, because the gap's already going down. So let's see then. Justice, no, he does not go in the pit lane, so I dare say he will stay out there. I think he's got one more lap or two left to determine he'll go in the pit lane, but talk about that, he's just set his personal best of the race by a tenth, so he is pushing hard, still on these intermediate compound tyres. Goes a bit wide at the exit of turn 2, so he's just picked himself up a warning there, but can't afford to do that. You can see him really pushing then, and he's got 11 laps. If he's going to stay out there, 11 laps left to defend from Giroux's attack.
Yep, it's, 11 laps, a 29.6 second gap, but, Jerome has he's got a lot of VRS in the tank. He's going to start using them. He's got fresh tires that, he's going to be able to define that pace on once they get into that optimal temperature. He's got clean air ahead. We'll have to keep an eye out on the gap, and I'm sure Justice is as well, just watching that gap just to see what his level of comfort is. I'm sure the tire wear on those intermediates are playing a little bit of a factor as well. Given Justice, he hasn't had to fight with dirty air. He hasn't had to fight too much with drivers. He's been able to just run his own race lap after lap, so he hasn't had to really put that extra strain on those on the tires. So they're sitting in a little bit more of a comfortable spot. I'm seeing. I thought Isaac Kush was closing up very. He was getting very close to Nolan there, about a tenth of a second behind. But as they're heading down the straight, it's a bit of a similar story for the Mercedes as he gets close, but not close enough to get the overtake done. Still stuck in 8th on that. Looking at that McLaren's rear diffuser. That's got to get really frustrating there. Just can't quite seem to get ahead. And meanwhile, Killer Blue, he's closed up to this little group as well, and he might want to get involved just a little bit in this battle. Maybe try to catch one or both of them napping here. And there you go, Justice. He's calling it. He's taking a pit stop here. So we'll have to see where Jerome's going to end up.
Yeah, Isaac Kush dived down the inside at turn 13, got the move done, but with contact. Oh, Nolan's going back down the inside, he outbreaks himself, and does he go in the wall? Yes, he does, he's lost his front wing, and Killer Blue's there as well. You need to be careful, as Killer Blue, oh, he's lost it, and he's crashed! That's a big crash there, a bit of wheel spin, and he clipped the curb, and that's definitely a safety car of this race. That 100% record of safety cars is still here, but Killer Blue there just get out of the power, wheel spinning into the wall, losing his front wing, and lost his tyre as well for good measure. And I think Nolan got away with that one, but he's lost a lot of front wing, has Nolan. So a lot of chaos there, and it's lap 20 out of 31 then. So Justice then rejoins in first place, and he's happy that the safety car came out at the right time in the right place, because if he went around the final corner and that crash happened, the safety car would be right in front of him, which it isn't, so he's able to get past it. And also was pit at the right time as well, I just noticed. So yeah, Justice went to the pit lane as well.
My goodness, honestly, I wasn't expecting all of that to play out there. I mean, I switch over for half a second to see Justice in his pit stop was gonna jump on board with Jerome just to see where he was gonna end up by the time Justice left the pit lane. But through all of that was happening, I didn't quite see the initial move from Isaac Kush, but I mean, it almost looked as if I think Nolan, as he was heading towards the inside, it looked like he's at. I don't know if he just saw the attack coming on the inside and slowed up just a little bit to set himself up for a switchback, or if he just felt, okay, maybe that was a little two elbows out, we'll try again. That I'm not too sure, but I mean, all the while, Killer Blue, I think he saw an opportunity with Nolan going deep. He went for it there. I don't know how he ended up in the wall, but it was honestly the worst case scenario for Killer Blue. But just like that, we've got a safety car coming out, and I mean, Jamie, we were talking about lap 1, having to treat that like it was the last lap of the Grand Prix. Well, here under safety car restart, I think we're going to have another situation. It's going to be treat it like the last lap of the Grand Prix, but take 2 here on that safety car restart with the grid being bunched up together. I think it's going to make for an interesting little battle here, I think, on the first lap once we go back to green flag racing.
Indeed, all or nothing for these drivers. I think Giroud will be good at it. And you've got to be really careful as well in the safety car conditions at the final corner, because it's very easy to lose the way in the dry conditions under the safety car and these wet conditions. So get on the spot at the right time. You've got to be really careful not to spin the wheels up on the final corner. So it could be really interesting these last few laps. But yeah, I've saved the footage of that crash. I'm trying to look how that happened, because I don't think Killer Blue actually hit the wall. Oh, it's just. It was a scrape. He didn't even hit the wall. I'm just watching it now. That wasn't enough to merit a lost wheel. He actually scraped the wall like nothing, just a normal scrape the wall like you've seen previously, and that's just a massive shame. Like, yeah, the way this game works, it's just one of them things really. It didn't actually hit the wall.
I mean, that's very much a shame for Killer Blue. I do know. I'll say by experience that I mean, sometimes it really feels like those those tires are just put together with Legos or with Scotch tape or something like that. Like they'll fall off on the smallest amount of contact with the wall. I think that. Now that you're mentioning it, that might just be the case with Killer Blue, as it was just a little bit of a scrape, but just really unfortunate, especially given, I was probably the best, I'll say the best action that we've had in quite a few laps here with the way this Grand Prix is played out. But, I mean...
Yeah, indeed.
The grid is bunching back up together. We're starting to hit the end of the Grand Prix. I think we're going to see a little bit more here in terms of raciness for a lot of the drivers. I'll take a quick look. I didn't keep it up for the longest time, given I think we all knew what tires everybody was going to be on, but looking under safety car, you've got Justice on a fresh set, Jerome on 2-lap-old tires, P is on 3-lap-old, Wouter on 5-lap intermediate tires, Campbell on 4, Izat and Carmentalist running 7 and 8-lap-old intermediate tires respectively, with Gary on 7-lap-old tires as well. Coxey down to Jamie, and I think they've all pit under the safety car to put on a fresh set here. So we've got a little bit of difference here in terms of the tire wear. We'll see how that's going to play out. I'm thinking, especially from I'll say from Wouter heading down, if those slightly fresher tires are going to make the difference here, or if these drivers are going to be able to hold on or hang on with those slightly more worn tires pitting just a little bit earlier on in this race.
The top 6 back where they are, except Wouter Header Campbell, and Isaac Kush sadly has been sick the whole race. He just could not find a way past in these conditions. But yeah, the safety car bringing him back to play, but it all unfolded down at turn 13. Isaac Kush was right behind Nolan, went down the inside, bit of front wing contact, and then Nolan went back down the inside, hit the wall. Then Killer Blue tried to get past, and he was going to get past anyway because Nolan had a broken front wing, but he wanted to make the move early, and sadly that ended up happening. I mean, back in the recent games as well, like 2019 and 2020, Eric, have you ever came encountered with that invisible wall?
Possibly here in Singapore. I know.
It's exit a turn. Where is it? Turn number 5. Have you ever encountered that invisible wall?
I mean, it is telling me something. I'm gonna be honest with you. I have run into I'll say my fair share of invisible walls, or I'll say invisible jumps as far as some of my practice has been concerned. I don't think I've seen it in an actual race though. But I know Singapore. I've run into. I mean, especially this corner here. I feel like I've run into what I think is an invisible wall, but could very well just be a little bit of the wall that sticks out just a little bit more than the rest. I mean, I know Brazil has a curb that I hit at one point that just set my car absolutely flying off the track, and that was a new one here with some Brazil practice. But I mean, I guess we've got these here and there. I can't quite. I'm not too sure about that turn 5 one you're mentioning, Jamie. But I mean, I'll take your word for it if it's there. I just haven't seen it. I just haven't seen it myself.
Oh, it's not in this game. It's in the previous last games.
Oh, in the previous games. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. If it was in this game, then Cody's haven't fixed it. But yeah, the last Singapore Grand Prix we had, obviously with COVID, we could go to Singapore due to COVID restrictions. 2020 and in 2021, the last Grand Prix winner was Sebastian Vettel, and we've got Ferrari leading the Grand Prix so far. So looking good for Ferrari. Let's see then, will anybody be brave enough for these last few laps, all or nothing for these drivers to try and get past their opponents, because they've been stuck behind each other for the whole race. And the only overtakes we've seen is in the pit lane when people are undercutting, or Isa Kush, but he was right behind Nolan. But other than that, it's just been following everybody else.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a theme here. I mean, of course, this late in the race, I don't think we're going to be seeing any more pit stops, barring any any front wing damages and front wing changes. Excuse me.
Could
but,
be.
No,
it could be
go
dramatic.
Ahead.
It could be dramatic towards these last few laps, because people might, in these last few laps, will absolutely send it if they're close enough behind each other, like in the first lap.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the case once we see with the safety car restart, with everybody just going to be, I think, possibly trying to get the jump wherever they can, trying to time that as best as they can with the restart. So that's going to be interesting, but I do think maybe as the race is going to play along, we might see a couple more sends going into some of these corners. The drivers just trying to make something happen, trying to get ahead, get a couple extra points there for the championship. But the lights are off on the safety car, so it's going in at the end of this lap. We're going to be going back to racing. You can see Justice really slowing down the field very early on here. I like the call because, safety car, it takes kind of its sweet time here in Singapore through Sector 3, I think. So, Justice, when he's ready to go, he wants to know he can go. He doesn't want to be forced to slow up. He doesn't want to have to run into that safety car. So he's really keeping everybody behind, getting that last little bit of heat in the tires, just bringing everybody around. Who is going to have the jump? And of course, when is Justice going to decide he wants to go? I'm thinking it's going to be soon. Safety car in the pit lane. And it looks like he's going to go. And I think that was maybe Wouter in the McLaren that had a little bit of a slip up a little bit on that restart, already slowing up a little bit. You can see Justice putting a little bit of extra heat in those tires, moving around a little bit, heading into turn 1. But he hangs on to the lead. Jerome in second. P's right behind. Wouter, he's been able to close that gap up and hasn't lost out on too much. So it seems like that, I mean, that mistake that appeared to have happened didn't affect too much. But Pease, he's got a lot of ERS. He's following very closely to Jerome. Is he going to maybe try to go for it here going into this corner? No, he hasn't closed up enough. Jerome doing a great job defending down the inside. Coxie and Gary, though, are exchanging positions. Coxie getting ahead, although it looked like he went just a little bit wide in that corner to get that done. Just maybe outbreaking himself just a little bit, but now you can see Ben right up on the back of Gary as he's going to try to go for that P9, but I think that's since been sorted just a little bit there. As, I mean, the initial opportunities for overtakes, they've came and they went, and I think we're going to start seeing a couple more drivers maybe now just kind of settling back into what we've seen for the last little bit here.
Top 6 all close together, so it's really crucial for these guys not to pick up a penalty, otherwise they'll find themselves potentially falling away from a win or a podium. But Nolan has got past Ben JS then, and Ben JS, he made a mistake there. I'm quite sure what happened to him. He's lost his front wing, and I don't hope he don't go in the wall either, because if he did, he might lose a wheel and cause safety car. But yeah, he's lost his whole front wing there. Did he make contact with Nolan there? It was halfway down the straight, so you don't expect to see people making mistakes there, obviously, with full throttle and yeah, not breaking traction as well, so I wonder what happened. But there was a good move from Gary and Coxie. Coxie was desperate to get past Gary. He spent the majority of the race behind him. And he got a really good exit at turn 5, sorry. Used the slipstream and ERS to get past him. He went around the outside, didn't completely move off the track, but the game allowed it, so he's able to stay in 8th place. And next one is Car Mentalist for him, who's on all the tyres, about 8 laps difference, so will that make a difference for him to try get past Car Mentalist on those older compound tyres? Will be benefit for him, so let's see. They've both got penalties as well, so it won't benefit in terms of like penalties, because Gary, if he can stay within the 3-second range, might find himself back up to P7, as Ben JS said, in the pit lane to chase it for a wing. And sadly for him, he falls outside into P12 in the top 10. He was there before, but Nolan is right behind Gary then. Can he make a move down into turn number 7? It's too far back to do so, because Gary's using the ERS, so yeah, it's too far back. But it looks like Justice has pulled a 1.4 second gap, as Giroud's pulled a 1 second gap on P. It looks like the group is starting to separate again.
Yeah, we're starting to see a little bit more of that separation. Justice, well, I mean, he's keeping business as usual here. That safety car wasn't going to keep him, wasn't going to affect his race too much, it doesn't seem. And already, off the restart, he's pulled that gap, and, he's leaving it up to Jerome to try to keep up with him here. A little bit better in terms of battery, just having a little bit more pace as Justice compared to Jerome, but, you still got to give Jerome credit for the drive he's put. Pease, I think he's trying to keep up as well, but still sitting around a second. I think Pease saw that opportunity there off the start, heading down Rafael's Boulevard off the safety car restart. Just couldn't quite get it done. It was a good defensive play by Jerome, positioning that car a little bit more on the middle to inside, forcing Pease to the outside, and going around the outside in these type of conditions, not an easy task, even for the best of drivers. But since then, the gaps have kind of formed here just a little bit, especially between the top 4. You can see Campbell still keeping Wouter honest here, and Isaac Kush still following along, but nobody's really right up behind, except for maybe Nolan, who, but still even then, 0.3 of a second behind, just not enough to get an overtake done here on Gary, who's ahead of him there. As you can see, they're close, just not close enough.
It's a real carrying factor on this track, real carrying deep for these drivers. It's close, but not close enough, unless you're on different tyres, of course. But yeah, it's gonna end. I think it's gonna end like this, sadly. But in terms of the drivers, they've done a really good job. I know how mentally tiring it is, because I've been in a wet race in Singapore myself, and it's not nice. It's just being stuck behind somebody when you know you're faster, but you just can't overtake due to the nature of the track as well, and the nature of these cars, which can play a factor. That's why they're changing the regulations, aren't they, in 2022, so we can have more closer races. I can't wait to see the first race of the season in Bahrain next weekend. Just one more week to wait, guys. One more weekend till we see who is the best out of the preseason testing.
Yeah, I know. As far as preseason testing is concerned, we've had those predictions. I've heard. I keep hearing Ferrari in those predictions as a team to look out for. I know a lot of people are hyped about Haas, and I gotta say I'm jumping in on the hype a little bit too. It took 2 years They put 2 years into that darn car. It better be good as who. Sorry, back to the racing here. It looked like Nolan got very close to Gary. As he might have thought about a little bit of an ambitious move, but I don't think that was going to work out here in Sector 3. But, I mean, yeah, I'm excited to see what the new regulations, the new cars are going to bring out for Bahrain next week. It's been a long off season. Preseason's got me really excited, and I can't wait to see it. And sorry, I thought Nolan was going to lose it there a little bit, just taking a little bit more of a wider exit of the corner. But I mean, once again, just Nolan can't get ahead here of Gary. Of course, it seems like he's trying very hard, just trying to put that car, show himself in Gary's mirrors. But, I mean, Gary keeping calm under pressure. But, having a little bit of a tank slapper there, moving towards the inside. Nolan might have an opportunity here if he can just send it just a little bit. Hard on the braking. Is it going to be enough? They're close. But no, not close enough for Nolan as he's still stuck behind Gary once again. I thought we were going to have the overtake, but just not quite there for Nolan, just not having enough pace down that straightaway to get it done in the braking zone.
Gary knows how to defend. He's been doing it for the past whole race, in fact, when he had Carmentis, Coxey and Carvin right behind. So, yeah, he knows how to defend. He's been P9 the majority of the race, says Gary. Now he's going to defend from Nolan behind, and Jamie 1 as well. Respect for Jamie 1, because in the early stages of the race, he lost his front wing, and he had to pit, and he stayed with it. I know a lot of people would have left. I think I would have left as well, because Singapore have been in last place. It doesn't really help. But, yeah, respect for Jamie 1 to stay in the race. And currently in P11. Still a few positions to take away. You can hear that wheel spin from Nolan as well as he applies the throttle right behind Gary. Gary placing the car in the right position there, so keeping Nolan behind and Jamie 1 as well for good measure. But Gary then under massive pressure, you can see there. Nolan wants his break later, get the throttle earlier as well, try and get past him, but there's just no way past. But I wonder, he needs to soak up this pressure and not make a mistake and get out of turn 5, because that could cost crucially there. But him responded immediately, was able to keep behind Nolan, and yeah, got to do it for the next 3 laps. Has Gary then. Let's see how we can defend from Nolan into turn 1. Not a place you really want to do it, of course. Leading into turn 2 and turn 3, such tight corners, all leading into 1 as well. Very easy to make a mistake in these first 3 corners. And then can he set himself up at turn 3? In turn 4 we go, get on the throttle. You can see him just getting a much better exit, of course. When he go for it in turn 5, when he wait, there he goes, down the inside he goes this time. But Gary's still there on the outside. Now it's going to be a drag race all the way down. As you can see, the wheel spin from Nolan lights up the rears there. They're going side by side, both using that ERS. And Gary then has the inside line for the next corner. Well, Nolan break later, will try to go around the outside, but Gary has the optimal racing line. He stays ahead as well. Jamie 1 looking to get around the outside, but Nolan has the inside line and stays in P10. There's a good defensive there from Gary. I thought Nolan would have him, judging by the way he went down the inside of turn 5, but Gary, keeping calm and composed, stays in P9.
Yeah, it was really close there. I mean, I thought Nolan had it a little bit of a similar spot, but seemed to just have a little bit of a better opportunity. Maybe he got a little excited on the throttle there, seeing that opportunity, getting a little bit of wheel spin, which didn't help out in the end. But unfortunately, because of that, he still finds himself behind Gary. Jamie, and meanwhile, he saw the opportunity as well. I think he thought about going for it, but then thought better of it, realizing that that next corner, I think it's turn 6 if I recall, not an easy one to overtake, go side by side on. As much as we saw it in lap 1, I think I mean that's a little bit more of an exception to the rule rather than a formality or a normal like we've seen with some other corners. But I mean, for Nolan, still stuck behind XL Gary as he's continuing that defensive clinic is the Aston Martin driver. Meanwhile, I've been kind of keeping an eye out on this as well as a Carmentalist keeping Coxey behind as Coxey's been closing up. Through all of that, though, on the penultimate lap, you can see Jerome, he's brought this gap down to about half a second here. So I'm going to keep an eye out here on the leaders as Jerome is right up on the back of Justice here. So we might actually see have a little bit of a battle on our hands here right at the end of this race. Maybe Jerome feeling opportunistic about possibly being able to snag this victory right at the end from Justice's hands, but he's got his work cut out for him. I mean, we've seen the type of drive Justice can put up here in Singapore. He's looking very confident, so it's going to be very difficult. I mean, Justice, he's got a full battery to work with. Jerome, he's using up a lot here, trying to keep ahead, so I think Justice still has a little bit of an advantage, but it's going to be good to see here with how close this gap is, approaching about the final lap and a third here in this Singapore Grand Prix. Will it be the Ferrari? Will it be the Red Bull on the top step of the podium? We'll find out here in about, I think I'll say about 2 minutes time or so.
Gary's doing a fantastic job yet again, although Nolan just had the back of him, but thankfully didn't get sent into a spin. But yeah, Gary places the car in the right place. You just keep Nolan behind. He's got one more lap, but try and keep him behind. Nolan was looking for different ways down at turn 6, 7 and 8 to try and get past him, but it's his last chance now the next lap. Also keeping an eye on the battle for P1 and P2. Is Giroud close enough to try and make a move? Obviously, Justice has got weight. In fact, he's on 100% ERS, so yeah, much more of a big deficit on Giroud on ERS, so he can use it all down the straight if he is under pressure. But I expect Justice to stay ahead unless he makes a mistake, of course, which I don't think he will do, because he's led all this race. He's done a fantastic job. As you can see there, Giroud just drained the ERS, try and see if he can get anything out of it, but obviously this is his last opportunity to overtake him, and I dare say Justice will have this until the checkered flag. But Nolan, then, is he close enough on this occasion? No, he's not. I feel like Jamie's closer towards Nolan than Nolan's closer towards Gary. But out this corner, which is really crucial, you can see Nolan carrying the extra speed coming out of turn 5 then, using that ERS yet again. He's got a lot to play with. So does Gary, though. So let's see then. Let's see where he goes. Gary defends the inside. Nolan has to go around the outside. Does Gary outbreak himself like he did the last lap? Yes, he does. And there goes Nolan then. Gets a much better exit, and he finally gets past him. Will Jamie won't follow? No, he doesn't. So Gary then losing the place to Nolan as he outbroke himself down at turn 6. Did that the previous lap, but he managed to get back on track quickly. But this time, Nolan had it, and good job there from Gary to put up that defence.
Yeah, good job from, I mean, it was a good defensive clinic from Gary. I mean, lap after lap, Nolan gave it a shot. Ooh, but not over yet, as you can see, struggling a little bit for traction, losing the back end a little bit, but had a little bit of a separation to work with there. But Nolan, for him, the race isn't quite over just yet, but he's looking a little bit more comfortable as, I mean, that gap has formed. But, I mean, it was a nice move from Nolan. He saw his opportunity, realizing Gary was going to be defending the inside line. So I think hit the brakes a little bit early, tried that switchback move, helped a little bit that Gary went a little bit deep, but the rest is history. But at the front is Justice, who takes the victory here on this very damp Singapore Grand Prix. Jerome kept him honest, made a charge at the end, but just wasn't enough. But still a solid P2 for the Red Bull driver, and it's Pease, who essentially hung on to P3 for the entirety of the race. He gets that final podium place, rounding that out. Wouter in 4th, QVR Campbell rounding out the top 5, and Isaac Kush, I think he crossed the line in style there with that P6. I'm sure he was hoping for better, but still a decent result for him, all considered. Carmentalist in 7th, able to keep Coxey behind, who finishes in 8th. XL Gary in 9th, Jamie in 10th. Nolan, for all the effort with the overtake, I think he loses out in the end due to penalties, since he's in 11th here. And once again, crossing the line in style is Ben, just having a little bit of fun in the intermediates there as he finally crosses the line to round off the Singapore Grand Prix.
Regardless of that race, I think Pease and June will be happy, because those two, I know, had a difficult race back in Canada, so they managed to recover well on the podium. But good job to Justice there to get into P1, led the whole race in fact, and yeah, I think the main story of this race was qualifying at lap 1.
Yep, definitely that was the main story. I mean, the dry time with qualifying really kind of made the difference there for that starting position. Of course, lap 1, we had a lot of... I mean, lap 1 left a lot to be... actually, words are being a little difficult for me. But lap 1 was a very solid lap, is what I'm trying to say, in terms of the battles, whatnot, trying to battle for position with everybody so close. But once lap 1 happened, that essentially decided the race. We had the safety car just to throw a little bit of a little bit of a wrench here in some of the strategies, but I don't think we didn't have as many battles under that safety car restart as I might have been hoping for. But, I mean, still a decent race. Brought out a lot in terms of strategies here, all in all. But, yeah, that was the Singapore Grand Prix. Justice takes the win from pole for the Ferrari. Matching that drive from Sebastian Vettel in 2019, like you were mentioning. Jerome in the Red Bull from second, ends in second. Pease jumps from fifth to third. Wouter 7th to 4th. Cuvier Campbell falling from 3rd to 5th. Isaac Kush 4th to 6th. Carmentalis, though, had a solid drive from 13th up to 7th. Coxey 14th up to 8th. XL Gary in 9th, and Jamie in rounding out the top 10. Nolan and Ben, like I mentioned, the final two runners here. Below that, you've got the DNFs there, but I mean, it was a decent race all in all. Like I said, not much in terms of overtaking action, but you know, it happens sometimes. You get those races every now and then.
I think I'd rather have a wet qualifier session and a dry race, because wet qualifier session could spice things up and put people out of place. And in the race, yeah, it can be really interesting to see those people who are usually up there but sometimes make those mistakes and claw their way back, and the opposite way around as well. So, yeah, I'd rather have a much wetter qualified session than a dry qualified session.
Yep, I do have to agree with that. I mean, wet qualifying makes things a little bit exciting to see how it's going to play out with the order in the race. I mean, a full wet race, you tend to get a little bit of what we saw here. I mean, those interchangeable condition races where everyone's kind of guessing what the pit stops are always fun to watch, because it leads to a little bit of excitement, a little bit of strategy. But I mean, you know, sometimes you get these full wet races where I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, honestly, I still had a good time here. I hope everybody enjoyed the race as much as we did. Now, I'll say I know there wasn't really much going on there. Jamie, do you want to jump into the interviews here this week, or do you want to leave it at that?
It's up to you.
I mean, I think we'll take a look and see. I mean, we could probably just leave it at that, all considered. I mean, I don't... We saw the race. It was what it was. I mean, Justice had a bit of a dominant drive. I mean, Jerome came close, and I mean, Pease, other than, I guess, lap 1... I mean, I don't have too many questions all in all for the podium here this time around.
I think the drivers would say it was a hard race. I had to keep the concentration, keep the tires in, and just watch out for the pit stops. So yeah, nothing really going on. I think that's what they'll say.
Yeah, I think you pretty much summarized the interview perfectly there. So I think we'll round off the stream a little bit earlier here today with what we've got. So Jamie, any final words before we end things off?
It's always nice to commentate with you again, and I hope we can do it next week as well.
Yeah,
we will do it next week. But
yep.
I want to see. Let's see if it's a better race than the last one or this one.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it will be. Maybe less worry of rain, as we're gonna be in the desert of Bahrain for round 7. So I think we're gonna have a little bit more of a better race. Yep, we're lining up with the real life calendar there.
Two things to look forward to: the Bahrain GP and ISRL Bahrain.
Exactly, it's going to be a good one. You're not going to want to miss it. But until then, on behalf of Jamie, myself, and everybody here at ISRL Esports, I want to say thank you so much for watching, and have yourselves a fantastic evening.